Everyone.
Шановні пані і панове, президент України
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Good afternoon, fellow journalists. And just a couple of words in the beginning before your questions. I thank you for this opportunity. We had a first meeting with my colleagues, and first and foremost, I would like to extend words of gratitude to you because you've been staying with Ukraine all the time of this war, that you're staying with Ukrainians, and I want to thank you in this time, this day, and all these days of the past 2 days were especially complicated for the citizens of Ukraine, for all those currently staying in Ukraine, supporting Ukraine. The massive shelling took place. I thank fellow journalists for being with us, for being with the civilians, everyone. And I would like to express condolences to the relatives, to the families of those who lost their lives, and I'd like to wish the fastest recovery to all those staying in the hospital, and I'd like to offer words of condolences to your colleagues from Reuters after the most recent shelling, unfortunately. Some of them died. This war took the life of many people of different professions, but all of them were doing everything possible for Ukraine to preserve its independence. I think it would be fair to start with a moment of silence in honor of all those who were killed.
Дякую, шановні колеги.
Thank you, fellow colleagues. Indeed, we would like to extend our words of condolences to Reuters and all those news agencies who lost their colleagues in this war as the result of the full-scale aggression. So we may start, please, the first question, the TV channel MO Ukraine. Olena, please. Mr. President, greetings. 100 of missiles and drones. Yesterday, 124 missiles were managed to take down. We know that some of the energy infrastructure facilities were pretty badly damaged, and that Russians are trying to take down the Kiev Dam. We could see, based on the photos, that there are some destructions. So, preparation for this winter. How much of a challenge that is today, and what the government and the partners need to do. We also know that you wanted to agree with the partners to try and diplomatically stop the strikes against the energy infrastructure facilities as part of the third point of your peaceful plan. You were mentioning this plan. If diplomatically we won't be able to stop that, what are we going to have in winter? Well, there were a total of 230 strikes, and our defense system worked, but still there are some significant damages inflicted upon our energy system, and our experts are working, our energy experts are working, and the state emergency service personnel is working as well. And as you can see, the air raid is still active, and the personnel is already on the move to respond to that. And these people, I'm extremely grateful to them. As for the defense and protection, there is a variety of defense facilities, multi-level protection. The Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ukrenergo are also dealing with that. I don't know if you talked about that with the Prime Minister, but still we're working on that, unfortunately. Not all the regions of Ukraine have electricity and light now being returned, but we're working. As for the details and the destructions of hydro power plant and dam, on the overall, I don't like PR about anything related to kind of energy. We do have the freedom of speech, but I don't really like when the enemy is learning about the type of damages and destruction that he caused to our energy system. There are details that the whole world should be aware of in terms of the actions taken by Russia. And I am grateful to you and your colleagues for mentioning that, but whether the talking about the condition, the state of destruction, let's keep silent about that. As for the diplomatic settlements and solutions and steps, I think we are consistent in our actions, and despite Russia's unwillingness to stop the war, and we can see that, well, we can't say that Russia is, as some of the other leaders are saying, that Russia is willing to stop the war. All you need is just to negotiate. When you want to stop the war, you don't send 230 missiles and drones against us to kill our people. So the willingness, or in fact the lack of willingness, is clear to us. But we are consistent, as I've told you. We had an energy summit of peace, and later on we told that we will prepare the document saying that the energy facilities and some of the other aspects mentioned, that there will be meetings either online or offline organized on that, but that depends on the colleagues. Just recently I told, there's no holidays at war, but not all the partners or colleagues are at war. So we had a meeting, like online meeting, and the energy aspect was raised. On that, there will be a detailed document being prepared, and it will be coordinated at our meeting with our colleagues. The second meeting on the sea, and third meeting on the humanitarian aspect, on the return and of the children. All of those three matters will be worked out, and the final document, the comprehensive document, hopefully will be prepared by November. So this is the task for us, to prepare a document. Will be a preparatory stage before the second peace summit. Now, BBC Ukraine, please. Good afternoon. Mr. President, I would like to know whether the operation in Kursk has indeed stopped the energy negotiations in Qatar, as some of the Western media wrote about that, and whether Ukraine would continue to insist on those negotiations. And some of the Western media said that Russia was supposed to be there on those negotiations in order to stop the shelling of the energy facilities. These are not related things, absolutely. The Kursk operations and the Qatar meeting, well, they don't have anything to do with that. And the Kursk operations has nothing to do with any of the points of the peace formula. Whether it is related to the peace summit, yes, because it's one of the points of the victory plan for Ukraine. Once again, I want to be consistent. Let me try to respond to all of your matters, and then we'll go to the other aspects. A lot is being written, and sometimes that is not helping. What you said, what was mentioned, because these are the things that are completely not related, because the operation in Kursk has absolutely different objectives, different from the meetings with on matters of energy. It's important to finish the war, and the operation in Kursk is one of the stages designed to stop the war. And it was conducted in the online format. Yes, please. ARD, please, from Germany. Mr. President, the situation in the Donetsk region is very complicated for Ukraine, and many people in Germany and in Ukraine, they don't have a complete understanding why, under these very difficult conditions, you have decided to conduct an operation in Kursk, but not to reinforce the eastern direction. Could you please explain your strategic goals? I can, but not completely. Some of the people don't understand and don't know. That's good. Otherwise, we won't be able to succeed in Kursk. That is why it's important that only a short number of people were aware of this operation. That's why it was a success. Definitely, there are goals that I can mention, and there are some of the objectives that I may not be able to share with you. Well, the operation in Kursk, it resulted in a couple of things. First and foremost, the occupation of the Kharkiv region is stopped. We had an operation about the attempt to create buffer zones in Kharkiv and in the north. We didn't know the specifics, but we understood that Sumy and Chernihiv region could be in plans. And what we were receiving from our intelligence and from the partner intelligence agencies, we had some information on the redeployment of Russian forces, how that might be taking place, etc. So this willingness of establishing those buffer zones and the proceedings of creating those buffer zones in terms of the Kremlin's decision, we didn't have any complete understanding on that. So we prevented this operation from Sumy region in Chernihiv region, but still we've managed to cause significant harm upon the enemy, inflicted significant casualties upon the enemy. I'm not sure whether the Commander-in-Chief has informed you on that, but as for the Donetsk region, this is their strategic goal. And by the way, from the Kharkiv direction, from the Zaporizhia direction, they've already redeployed some of the forces. What's going to happen next? Well, it depends on us and the success of the Kursk operation. And this is a very important moment. And the fact that they are not redeploying the forces from Donetsk, well, it's clear they have the most highly prepared forces in there. That's a strategic direction. They really want to occupy our Donetsk region. This goal remained unchanged since the beginning of the big war. That was the goal since the beginning of 2014. But now the goals are unchanged. They are interested in a complete occupation of the Ukrainian Donbas. That won't be successful, and we're working on that. As for the Kursk, it's part of our plan, the plan of gaining victory for Ukraine. Maybe it may sound ambitious for someone, but still, it's an important plan for us, and there are some of the things that I can share with you. I'm not sure that everything, but one of the directions, well, is Kursk. The other direction is the strategic place of Ukraine in the security infrastructure of the world. And the third direction is the package of the package that is designed to force Russia to put an end to this war by diplomatic means. And the fourth direction is the economic, but I'm not going to give you too much details on that. The plan is prepared, and I think it would be fair for me to present this plan to the President of the United States, because a lot depends on him in terms of the success, whether we'll be provided with what we need for this plan, whether we'll be allowed to use what will be provided under this plan or not. And since there are always delays in life, I think I will be able to present this plan in September to the President of the United States, and I think it would be correct to provide this plan to Kamala Harris and to Donald Trump, because we don't know who will be elected as the U.S. president, and we really want to implement this plan. Thank you. Now, the next question from RBK Ukraine, please.
Mr. President, already after the start of the Kursk operation, you had a lot of contacts with your Western colleagues. How do they explain to you the remaining certain limitations on the use of Western weapons on Russian territory? What are the arguments? What are the red lines they are fearing? So on. They try not to talk to me about that, but I try to raise. So no more Olympics, but table tennis still here. Interfax Ukraine, please. Thanks for having me, Mr. President. In mid-July, Azerbaijani president announced the EU addressed them with a request to continue transporting gas across the Ukrainian territory. A lot has changed since then. Ukrainian military took Suja pumping station under control, and terrorist Putin went to Azerbaijan also to talk about transit. So what is the position of Ukraine on gas transit in 2024-2025 as its continuation? So no more contracts with Russia, full stop here. As regards transit of natural gas from other companies, and you're right, if we will continue getting requests from European colleagues, then yes, we in the EU will be looking into that. I have no clue what this old man was talking about in Azerbaijan. Maybe there are other matters for him to discuss. CNN, please.
Dobrý den, pane prezidente. Ivana Kotosová, CNN. I will ask my question in English. You now have received the new U.S. military assistance. You've received F-16s. Your new recruits are now on the front lines, and yet the situation on the battlefield is extremely difficult. And some of your Western allies are worried about whether or not you can actually win this war in a military way. So my question is there a way, is there a plan, strategy perhaps, to consider negotiating and consider perhaps giving up some of Ukraine's territory in exchange for peace and security guarantees? So for instance, if there is an offer of guaranteed NATO membership, would that be something you would consider to sit down and negotiate and give up territory? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are not ready to change our territories, and we can't do it to change our territories on any negotiations. Yes, that is the first. It is difficult. Difficult, yes, because this decision depends, of course, on support of our colleagues, and I hope that they will do everything further and quicker. You said about F-16. There is very good result, very good. Nobody talked about it, but we destroyed already in this huge attack of Russians. We destroyed already some missiles and drones using F-16. I will not share how many, but we did it thanks to partners that they gave us F-16s provided to us. But again, it's not enough. We're a small number of F-16, and we need to do wider training mission and etc. We have propositions to the United States. It depends on their permission. They have to be positive on it. They have to look at this real. Because we speak about our territories, not about American territories. Yes, so that's it. And about new package, I'm very thankful. I had a conversation with President Biden. He decided to give us the new package. Thanks a lot. A little problem. We need, after Biden, to bring this package home. I think this is maybe it's small detail for our big bosses in the world. We are small. We are small. But we have to be brave against Russian attacks. That's it. That's what we really need. Just all the decision bring home to Ukraine. Thank you.
LBUA. Соня, будь ласка.
Добрий день, пане президенте.
Yeah, Mr. President, at the meeting with ambassadors, there was a proposal to create a so-called Ministry of Unity. I had no idea about the name. Let me jot it down. Yes, it was something about working with the diaspora and so on. Yeah, thank you, thank you. It wasn't my idea. It was from Dmytro Kuleba. I do not know everything about Dmytro Kuleba. Wasn't it his idea? I think it was the reverse. Sorry. Sorry is mine, maybe. Sorry to Dmytro. But again, well, the proposal. And just to continue, there was an idea about you allegedly talking to Western partner to help bringing back to Ukraine the men of conscription age. Again, Kuleba's idea? No, not Dmytro. Okay, two important components. First of all, I think the Ministry of External Affairs won't have enough force, you know, to not to lose 7.5 million of Ukrainians. That was what I spoke about with the head of the cabinet, and yes, we talked about the matter. It would be a challenging mission for any ministry. It's not about money or one's personality. It's about institutional considerations. I think no one has ever faced the challenge of having to return 7.5 million. The Minister of Finance, he showed the number of retirees. If we don't get people back, if we don't have the taxpayers back, we will face a very strong challenge even after the war. So the question is how to do it, how to feed the 10 million retirees we have. They do deserve it. They do deserve decent declining age without having to work. Yeah. We need to return the adults, the adult population into Ukraine. We need to bring back our children, our students, and so on. Not by coercing them, but by creating conditions for them to be willing to go back. We need to talk to them. There are millions of people still struggling to find employment. This is one of the topics for this ministry. Provide employment in Ukraine. Foreign ministry isn't about that, by nature, by definition. But, you know, embassies, consulate departments are not able to process that big a number of people. Next, there is a question of attitude, approach towards people. Unfortunately, you know, a woman with a kid can go abroad, and her husband died here on the front line, so she's over there. Her man has died, and there is no family here, and she already contemplates another life in another country, with another company, with another function. So it's necessary to communicate with them a lot, to help people not to lose their link with Ukraine. Lots of challenges like that. Not to say about really very complex influence, Russian Federation, has been exerting on our people through their agents, sleeper cells, all sorts of channels. They try to intercept, people's will. Check what they've been doing with people on the temporarily occupied territories. They changed their mindset, the understanding of what is happening, who attacked whom. Yeah, these are there are guys who learn a lot about everything, who are strong in the support of Ukraine, but still they have to be worked with. We need to communicate with them, to maintain a link with them institutionally. And I think this ministry is extremely important for exactly that purpose. I talked to Prime Minister, we discussed the idea how to expand it. Particularly, think about Poland, Germany, where the majority of our refugees staying there. I think we need to design today policies for such an institution. And we will have to make this decision this autumn. What about men? Yeah, about bringing back men. Roughly converted, some news in the media. It is politically a challenging topic to announce that, yes, we are sending Ukrainian men back home because it's too expensive a business to support them. Maybe it would be better to discuss it while meeting the President of Ukraine, to only announce that it was on initiative of the President of Ukraine who asked for them. Yes, I would agree to have them return, but without coercion. Against my political responsibility, yeah, why not? There's an important point. I raised the matter already. There are Ukrainians working in Germany, Poland, and other countries. Yeah, it's quite comfortable for them. Them working and getting, mediocre salaries maybe, and there are even Ukrainians who do not work. I'm not going to tag the countries where Ukrainians do not work. I do understand, though, that politically it may be advantageous, rather than paying these people on the third year of the war, sending them back into this country. I would really love to have all of the Ukrainians come back. But if this is their decision. Kyiv Independent, please.
Kyiv Independent. Пане президенте, ви говорили про Курську операцію як
Mr. President, you mentioned Kursk operation as a part of the victory plan, as a measure to press on Russia to end this war on conditions beneficial for Ukraine. But this operation is 3 weeks in the making, and they still advance around Pokrovsk. What kind of beneficial conditions it can be about when it comes to the need to defend such an important hub in... But did they advance to Pokrovsk before the Kursk operation? Yes. Were they faster or not? I think the pace was quite the same. I would say they were moving much faster. Not exactly as you have it in mind. There are 3 brigades. There is no difference whether it is 3 or 5 brigades there. The question is, who presses on you? What are the numbers? What your servicemen are capable of. You need to be able to understand the strong points, to be able to use them when it is necessary and where it is necessary. So, yeah, definitely, this is the decision by the military who has to stay in Pokrovsk. But you have to understand, they're not going back. Speaking of the Russian army, they move on because if they backtrack, they will be shot at. And this is much like in Bakhmut. They will leave 50, 60,000 of their troops. I want you to understand that. And we cannot play like that, Okay, we will sacrifice 100,000 and you sacrifice your 100,000. We already had that experience. I don't think it was right. I'm very much happy to see that Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi shares my view, because yes, we need to be astute. We are not bigger than Russia. I think everyone among us understands that. I think it's enough of this understanding for 2.5 years about how to plan operations, who has to be in the know of them, the number of people who know the details. It's not about personality. The enemy has long ears everywhere, not in our country, not just here. There was a huge job they did during the time of the USSR. At the time of, well, independence, they continue doing that. And if they know at least a bit about our future actions, we won't succeed. We won't have chance. This will mean that we will lose a lot. We need to use our platform, our peace summit, to be in strong position. Definitely, everything will end with a dialogue, but we need to be in a strong position to be in this dialogue. Thank you. ICTV, please, from over there. You partly answered my question regarding Pokrovsk. Maybe you have some solutions, decisions on how to strengthen your position. I do it on a daily basis. I talk with the Commander-in-Chief 2-3 times a day online. Pokrovsk, Toretsk direction, our Kharkiv area, all those areas, please believe me, lots of other areas in the south, Vuhledar direction. There are matters to discuss everywhere. Complex situation we had in New York, Donbass. So yes, there were such complications, and they were, they are, they will remain. Strengthening requires a lot. Trained manpower. Yes, the number of those who started training is growing, and I do hope it will help our servicemen to have some rotations, some time off. I wouldn't call it a fundamental rotation of personnel, but we already have the beginning. This is important. And yes, we talk on a regular basis about how to strengthen Pokrovsk. Fortifications, military force, those 8 packages we've been mentioning. Interestingly, by the way, regarding one type of support, I calculated the time we had to wait for until we started getting first batches. And it was quite a jubilee, 12 months. From promise to delivery, it responds a lot. Not to say that I'm blaming someone. We are thankful for every aid we receive. We would shake the hands, pat the back, sincerely say thank you, and we'll not forget to ask when do we come for another package, because we are not in a position to do otherwise. Okay, Ukrainska Pravda nearby. Nearby what? Roman Kravets. Dear Volodymyr Alexandrovich, let me start. Let me start with this question. Do you think you have time for more of them? Let's start. Okay, anyway. Any war is about resources. You've got information from the intelligence, army, national security and defense country, the cabinet, so on. So you do understand about resources. If we check the economic component, the human resource, the international aid available, how much time Ukraine will have to fully stand off against this full-scale invasion. Another question, at some point, we at Ukrainska Pravda asked you about your team, and you mentioned a team of 5 or 6 efficient managers. I mentioned the office of the president, not a team of the country. I saw several articles from you about efficient managers. I do remember those clandestine instructions what and how to write from the time of Yanukovych. You know, one has to have the light in his eyes to continue the matter. But let us continue with your question. If you allow me, the third one, no, the second and the last one, I was interrupted by you, sorry. So again, the question on efficiency, performance of your team. What is the measure of judging it? Is it the performance indicators? Is it loyalty? Please, what would you say? Oleg Tatarov, Rostislav Shurma, Andriy Yermak, others. Which should I start with? Which one are you most comfortable with? I don't remember. Resources. We should not be thinking in terms of how many people we still have. I would completely agree with you. People are not a resource. It's our, nationals mobilized. We are not treating them as a resource. This is what Putin has been doing. We have another type of attitude towards them. So we cannot put it like this. As regards our armament and weapons, in spite of all the handicaps, you do know them. Yeah, and because of that, we don't have 5 or 6 managers. I was mentioning the office. We have quite a big team working in the defense sector of Ukraine, not just in government institutions, but also private. I'm even surprised to hear this question because I think we've been having a lot of important meetings, briefings. I think you know the results and deliverables. Probably everyone but you sees and feels what has been changing. I'd like to thank our guys on the front line and working. I'd like to thank you for making available these long-range weapons, made available while we are waiting. And by the way, this Palanitsa missile, not a thing to smirk about, by the way. When you build one, when you test them, it can happen differently. Some may even lose lives after that.
So it's very, very important, very serious things. It's not about resources. It's important for the defense of our country. Now, since we started talking about the other developments in Ukraine, I think it was too early to mention that, but the society should be assessing and estimating the work of the people that are working on the defense industries 24/7. We had a positive test of the first ballistic missile in Ukraine. I'm happy to congratulate the military defense industry of Ukraine on that. I couldn't share any details. As for my team as president of Ukraine are all those people that are defending our country, including the armed forces, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the Ministry of Defense. And I believe we are one team. And I believe that whenever we have some positive directions in the approximation to the EU, that you unfortunately can't see that, but still we do have. And many people were willing to have that. So we need to extend words of gratitude to the Speaker, to his colleagues. Many laws have been passed. There are challenges in the Verkhovna Rada, in the government still, but not to see that at times of war, Ukraine has done so many things. Good. Now, as for the Patriots, F-16s, ATACMS, and other weapons, they didn't just arrive at the flick of a tongue. The peace summit, it wasn't established easily, even though we could lose our initiative among other initiatives for diplomatic settlement. So whenever you are saying, how do you assess people, for example, Andriy Yermak, then one of the key individuals responsible for preparing the summit, the peace summit, And whenever I'm talking about other people saying that we are one team, well, all these achievements, all the contacts with the United States, in White House, in State Department, and all these developments that we have for Ukraine, well, all of them done that. I mean, the Patriots, ATACMS, and F-16, you just don't know all the details. So I think it's important to understand. As for Tatarov, I didn't want it to do that, even though we had an off-reg, and I'm kind of surprised with your question. I had, with the Ukrainian journalists, we had an off-record meeting with representatives of your media. I don't know whether you were there or someone else, and there were journalists. And I told you about Tatarov at the off-reg, but if that's not enough, I will repeat that. And the United States knows about this and everyone else. Oleg Tatarov, together with Vasyl Maluk, were killing Chechen in Ukraine and Kiev while you were not here. Is that not enough? Just to force him to leave, for him to be killed by the Russians? Because I already told you this is not a public information. I told this to all the journalists during our off-reg meeting. Dear colleagues, let's stop this exchange of opinions. Let's go to the next question. ABC News from USA, please. Volodymyr Alexandrovich, could you please tell why are you planning to have the second peace summit in November, which is the month of election in the United States, and since the current President Biden is not participating, maybe at the end of his term he might have to take some very interesting, extraordinary decision for support of Ukraine, where we are grateful to the President, to the Congress for their decisions. I mean, it could be slow, but still we are receiving the support packages, which is incredibly important. And we cannot speak about the current President of the United States as about a past president. We do have a very significant relationship, and I'm getting prepared for the meeting in September, and hopefully I will be able to afford myself to visit the UN General Assembly. And a lot of things depend on the United States, and a lot of things depend on the Europe and decisions and the permits in Europe. You know what I'm talking about. They also depend on the positive decisions being made in the White House. So we need to work more on that. Please, Ukraine from in the center aisle. Mr. President, last month there were inactive discussions about the possible replacement in the government. You said that you have questions to some of the ministers. Should we expect any changes in the cabinet of ministers in the nearest time? And second question, as the result of the Kursk operation, can we expect for any other non-standard but brave decisions on the part of our armed forces? As for the government, we maintain dialogue with the Prime Minister. We have a lot of acting ministers. We need to solve that matter. So, in fact, we focus all of our efforts on that. We believe all the institutions should have a minister, like the leading person for that direction, and that issue could be resolved. It couldn't be that one minister covering a number of directions. That is why in the nearest time we'll be focusing on that matter, and we'll be able to vote all of that in the Verkhovna Rada. Surely that is related to some of the replacements, and you will see all of those changes. Just give us some time. And the second question was, I'm not going to tell you about any of the non-standard moves or tactics and the further continuation of the Kursk operation, because we need success. We really need success. We need to reduce the number of casualties and stabilize the situation in the east. And all that requires time, all that requires efforts and energy. Thank you. Please, RFE France in the center aisle. Igor Syomka. Thank you, Mr. President, for the possibility to ask this question. Well, according to your words about the peace summit, Russia is supposed to participate in this summit, but just recently the representative of Russia is saying that they're not going to participate. They were saying that's an ultimatum and that you're only going to discuss one peace formula. So if they will not come, how are you planning to reach this objective, and do you have any information about the plans for preparation for this summit? Well, as for the plan, I think I've already mentioned the three clauses that we've discussed during the first summit will be prepared. We're not going to wait for the next meeting. We'll prepare for all the aspects for offline and online, so we should be ready for November. As for the representatives of Russian Federation on the second peace summit, well, that's a desire of all countries. They believe that in this case, there could be a chance for putting an end to this war. That is why we wanted not to have Russians on the first summit. We managed to do that. We managed to gather the countries without the representatives of Russia. It's difficult, but still, we've gathered a lot of countries and institutions, over 100, and I think that was very important and successful. And we shall prepare a plan. And the representatives of Russia, should they wish so, they may be attending the second summit. Otherwise, we might be losing a lot of countries otherwise going to the summit. Liganet, please, in the end. Evgenia Mazur from Liganet. Mr. President, tell us, is it possible that the operation which is currently taking place on the territory of Russian Federation could go outside of the Kursk region, and what conditions for that? I cannot share it with you. I understand, as the citizen, your desire to learn more, but I can't give you any more information on the next steps in this operation. Thank you. CDF, please. Mr. President, Ukraine currently is not receiving the support of the West that it kind of relies on, and does that anyhow affect on the achievements on the front line, and what exactly do we need in terms of the support from the West, and what's your strategy? Well, we count on receiving everything. At the same time, sooner or later, the packages will be coming. It's just that the portions or the parcels are small, because you can see the appetite of this war. That's why, of course, we wanted to have more kind of voluminous packages. For example, the voting in Congress, as well as the agreements in Congress, well, they provide for enough money to have more and more packages for Ukraine, but there's certain delays. Sometimes it is also related to the production, because one thing you just vote, the other thing what's remaining at hand. So in any case, we're working on that. As for the Europe, we do have several initiatives. There is the Czech, there is the initiative of Denmark, there's contacts with Poland, with other countries, and we're expecting their packages of support as well. Plus, definitely, there's another very important moment that we started to move on. But if we won't be able to maintain this tempo, then Russia would be able to close the gap. That is domestic production. I'm talking about the drones, the artillery. I'm talking about the artillery systems and ammunition. Missiles. It's a very expensive program, and you need to invest money. And we don't have any money in the budget. We gave everything we had. The government gave everything they had. So where to search for those money? There are some personal agreements that I've mentioned to you with Nordic countries, with some of the Baltic friends who truly provide support to our domestic production, because surely after the end of the war there would be co-production covering other states and countries. And currently we do focus on reinforcing the capabilities of our personnel on the ground. So I do count on that money. I have instructed government officials and the office officials to search for the money and resources that would significantly increase the capacities of our domestic production, like drones that we've mentioned in the beginning of the year. We were talking about 1 million drones, and we are capable of producing 1.5, 2 million drones. And I mean, the state and public and private-owned companies, they can do that, but there's not enough money. Now, Telegraph, please, Marina. Good afternoon, Marina Sheshkova. Mr. President, two brief questions. Do you have a response why some of the people can leave the country, why some of the conscriptees can pay bribe and to leave the country? Do you think that the blame should be upon the Ministry of Interior? And then some were criticizing that not a single soldiers of Azov were returned on the Independence Day. Why is this happening so? Why Russia is not giving or is not allowing to return the Azov soldiers? Well, the law enforcement bodies, together with the State Border Guard Service, will have to work on that. So it's not the customs, but the State Border Guard Service that they should be working on that. They will work on the solution. And I agree with you. This is a challenge. This is a big issue for us. But hopefully there will be a result in 2 weeks. Well, at least on paper, at least we'll have an understanding how that could be reinforced. I mean, the control and responsibility. As for the second question, another decision was made. It was very important that, first of all, the families of our heroic soldiers and with people currently as prisoners of war, so that they would understand what is happening, because there are difficulties in the return of the service personnel of the Azov. There are different reasons. And I guess the family should be aware of all the challenges, of all the complications. That's why I've asked, and then we've approved that there is a format for working with the relatives of such personnel there. And now, the main intelligence department, together with the Security Service of Ukraine, together with Ombudsman Lubinets and the Foreign Military Intelligence, now they will be coordinating the lists for the return of POWs, and they will be discussing the questions that the families are asking. They will be requesting for the public answers. They will be posing those questions in this Center for the Return of our POWs. And we believe there will be an answer to that. And the fact that we had an exchange of POWs like on the 24th of August, but it was a coincidence. It's a daily work that we are doing now. Gazeta Wyborcza, Piotr, please. Mr. President, I would like to go back to the question about the assistance for Ukraine. The President of Poland, as he was returning from Kiev, he gave an interview and he told in details about the Polish assistance in the first months of the Russian aggression. And he mentioned over 300 tanks, but we kind of hearing less about this support. And how do you assess the current military support of Poland and the military cooperation between Poland and Ukraine? Thank you. I thank you for the question. The largest assistance came to Poland, it was very significant, and I was very grateful. We were all grateful in this beginning of the war, because hosting so many of our refugees, the borders were open, and I think every time, whenever we are assessing the support and assistance of Poland, it's fair to mention how it was happening during the first days, and Poland helped us a lot, and you as a representative of this country, I'm grateful to you, and in your behalf to all the people of Poland, because you had and you have a very positive attitude towards Ukrainians. There was a question about well, the loss of Ukraine, and we were spending hours on the telephone with Andrzej, like how to help. We've built this hub in Rzeszów, and then from Rzeszów we were receiving the assistance from United States. We would need to protect and defend the Rzeszów, and we were agreeing on air defense, on many other things. And we had a lot with President of Poland, and I believe after the elections, Poland focused more on the internal aspects. Well, not after, but maybe during the election process. Remember, all these grain processes, not very well, pleasant, but it's live, and that fragment is also there in between of us. But I don't think that would have a fundamental impact on the historic proximity of our countries and relations of our countries, and we'll do everything in order to prevent any divides between of our countries, because we are true neighbors, we're true brothers, like brothers and sisters, and I believe that, yeah, well, that's the price is too high to lose the historic unity because of any issues. I'm sure there will be.
There's a slight slump in the attention of the Polish society towards our defense capabilities. Probably Poland did deliver what it could. Also, probably, well, it's a matter of how many of things we need have remained in Poland. You know, without going to generalizations, I can put it like this, you know, there is a very specific matter. We need your MiGs, your warplanes, with nice avionics, and it will save us time to train our pilots. We won't need it. We don't know the number of these warplanes. I raised this matter with Andrzej, with Donald, Prime Minister Tusk. We spoke about it at different levels, but not positive solution yet. So I would say, if there is an idea of one very important decision, then this is it. Another important topic is about downing missiles, at least over the western parts of Ukraine. At the very least, again, it's about missiles heading towards Poland. We talked a lot about that, and I understand it might require support from several countries, and Poland just don't want to be left alone, one-on-one, with such a decision. As a NATO member, you know, probably it would lead to some positive decisions from Romania as well. But I think it will take us journalists to work together to see that the US supports this decision. Then it will be easier for us. Then certain things that are in different regions, certain things we will be able to focus them better at other different directions. We don't have aerial defense the way we want it, but we will work on that. Detector media, please. Mr. President, what was your first thoughts about the hearing Pavlo Durov being detained in Paris, about Telegram. What lessons for Ukraine from here? Well, let me be frank with you, I have no clue about the details of it, but I don't think anyone knows the details of it either. Though, well, maybe you, media representatives, know more. I'd say that as of today, there is no effect on it on Telegram. Telegram continues working in Ukraine. As regards our policies in Ukraine, such sensitive matters, well, we feel ourselves as it would be future EU member states, and I think it should be made in agreement with the EU. Okay, Sky News, please. Front row. Mr. President, Foreign Minister Lavrov from Russia said today using British stone shadows would mean playing with fire. They will have to update the nuclear doctrine. My question concerns long-range weapons. Do you share the fears among Western partners about threat of escalation? If yes, why? Well, playing with fire, I think he is quoting himself. He has been doing that all the time. And I think the intelligence in the Russian Federation does know our steps. They do know we are closing in for the solution. If this really happens and if we have such positive decision made, then Russia media domain and the foreign ministry will feel even more stress. But, you know, they've always been sending threats, also rattling the nuclear weapons. But again, let me repeat, Putin loves his own life too much. He wants to live a lot. So he will be sitting tight in his armchair in the Kremlin, and he will count on the public support of his action. But I don't think that the whole of the world will support the use of nuclear weapons, and the response from the world will be quite fast. Alternatively, we are as clueless about the international security. I think the world would not allow even thinking about that. Le Figaro, please, over there. I do understand it won't be possible for you to disclose all the details about your operation in the Kursk Oblast. But again, Ukraine is now controlling more than 1,000 square kilometers there. What you gonna do with it, with this mass of land? Will it also be part of the exchange fund? And will there be a green corridor to evacuate the civilians from there? As I've been mentioning it multiple times, I do understand the topic raises questions and probably is of interest for you in terms of further steps and information. I will not disclose those details because as soon as I start talking about that, about this operation, knowing all the details, we will be helping Russia blockade our actions on the battlefield. Well, this operation did unveil certain matters, political as well. It started showing the Russian public that it is more important for Putin to grab a town he has never heard about somewhere in Ukraine than to defend their own territory. I think it's gradually opened many eyes. I already had some conversations with Western partners, and I think this operation is still uncovering many more things about Putin's real plans. It's one story we've been discussing about his plans and ambitions. Some would believe, some wouldn't. Thanks God, most of the world already believes that, but some bits are missing. And now the global South has started seeing certain things. And they clearly see that his ambition is not about any sort of defense, because he's not defending, their standard narrative is about them defending some Russian-speaking guys somewhere in Ukraine. They effectively ruined everything. He is not defending, not able to defend anyone. His task is hell-bent on destroying us. And he tries to respond to that. The question is what he's capable of. What does he want? It's already very much clear about his capacity when he says they still have lots of people, serious army, lots of force. So this is a response. It's still not about just general talks about army. It's about specific armaments and the number of fodder, cannon fodder in the Russian Federation. Let us be clear about it. And as long as the military potential is depleted, and as a measure of such similar potential being increased in Ukraine, it will definitely lead to such tactical successes like in Kursk land, and he will face questions inside his own country. One main result of this whole world is the loss of trust in his public, to him, to his strength. These are very important things, and I think this operation unveils these corridors as well. Please, Radio Freedom over there at the end. Thank you, Mr. President. My question is about Donbass. The Russian army has increased its frequency of shelling in Donetsk Oblast area. Experts say that the enemy aims at quickly reaching the borders of the oblast. How much time we still have to defend it? And what will happen if they succeed? Well, our action plan is to prevent them from achieving that. This is the plan we've been living with for quite some time. This is an open source information, if you will. As it is open source, that this is the key objective in the east of our country, to fully occupy Donbass. Our task is prevent this from happening, prevent them from having this opportunity. They would promise it to their own society on a number of occasions. They would postpone the deadlines. Our task is to stabilize the situation. To stabilize the situation, they will have to have the most powerful brigades just there. This is extremely important. This is another yet stage of actions taken by our armed forces of Ukraine. And this is not a simple thing. You are completely right. This is probably the most challenging thing, to stabilize the situation there, and we have to do everything for that. Espresso, please. Please stand up for everyone to see you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. To continue with Detector Media's question regarding Telegram, not for about Mr. Durov, the State Intelligence Department many times mentioned security risk for the country from Telegram, and there is even a draft legislation to regulate the operation of social media and Telegram in general, in total. What is your attitude towards this whole initiative? Also a question about you announcing a meeting with anti-corruption authorities to solve the matter of those who fled the country, corrupt people and so on, and why it hasn't happened earlier. Well, to start with, I had no idea about such bill to regulate social media. Okay. It's you who initiated, motioned. Okay, thanks. I will have to read it to get an idea about the whole thing. I would be extremely cautious with regulating such processes because, state intelligence departments ask something, then another intelligence team comes over, then other law enforcement, and you end up in a quagmire. I would not criticize the document without reading it, though. As regards the second part of your question, there are certain problems with bringing back those people who are, traitors, collaborators, who betrayed the country. Nothing to add here. Obviously, there will be some changes elaborated to the legislation from the team that I've described before, from the anti-corruption authorities. We'll see what they have to make conclusions. I was told by them that the whole process of extradition is extremely difficult. You do know that if someone is suspected of high treason, many countries would not deport or release such individuals because they would inevitably say there's a threat of political persecution, and the legal structure effectively prevents them from doing that. Another thing is that there are certain difficulties with individual countries. There are some countries in the EU that you may not get any national from. I've been told there are particularly complicated things with Austria, for example. I hope they will come up with details of how to proceed. There's another interesting example regarding border trespassing. A colleague from Poland mentioned, by the way, this thing. We have quite good relationships with Poland on that. So there are certain agreements with the Polish side about illegal border trespassing, that such people may be sent back. But we don't have any such agreements with Romania, with other countries, with Moldova. Maybe it's for the Ministry of Interior, the Migration Service, to work this out. If we would be in the EU, there won't be a problem with it. But there's still a way to go until we are there. Asahi Shimbun over there at the end. Thank you, Mr. President.
What is your definition of victory, and what compromises acceptable to achieve it? Thank you.
Я не вважаю, що на сьогодні Україна знаходиться в тій ситуації.
I do not think that Ukraine currently is in position to look for compromises with people who, frankly speaking, came out here with a completely different mission of annihilating us. Secondly, I don't understand that the whole world is waiting. Definitely the whole world would be glad to hear about Ukraine finally finding an idea of a compromise to end the war just tomorrow. At least many of them would be happy to hear that. Well, I'm not going to surprise you today with it. With Putin, not just compromise, but even a dialogue would be a senseless and futile exercise, because he doesn't want the war to end in a diplomatic way. he wants to go kind of diplomatic way, but if we cede 30% of our land to him, we shouldn't play into his hands. By the way, coming back to the Kursk operation, it helped us a lot to reduce the number of the votes favoring compromise idea. Another important thing behind these steps in Kursk. Our boss, Mr. President, quite recently, State Intelligence Service said there are some ideas about how to deal with the Crimean Bridge. Could you even hint about that? Because it's of great interest, not just for Ukrainians. Well, what can I say? The State Intelligence Service, they do know how to stir the media environments, for sure. Let me put it like this. If you want something to happen, sooner or later, let us first have it, then explain. Political Europe. Thank you, Mr. President. My question is as follows. Ukraine is controlling territories of another country, of Russia. When Russia would occupy our territories, we didn't know everything happening there. Extrajudicial killings, tortures, and so on. Now Ukraine similarly tries to show a correct way to occupy, in a humane. I have never heard any such idea about correct way to occupying. Parliament Speaker says gentle occupation. Whatever. My question is, how challenging this business might be, having witnessed all that we've got from Russians to respond in a humane way. And second question, why don't we see any rejection, if you will, from the Russians? Ukrainians did start to oppose. There's a lot of talk about legal notions and definitions today, so there is no occupation from our side these days. We have a defense operation launched. We have garrisons we have to defend. On our territory, we use every step and measure on the territory of the Russian Federation to prevent them from occupying our land. Not because of us starting, being the first. They've got some of our land, and we do certain steps to prevent them from grabbing more. This is what our steps are about.
And as you can see, we're not extending or increasing our territories. We're not changing the constitution. We don't need any others' land or the others' citizens. As for the attitude, first and foremost, I believe that our people, they're, well, simply better. They don't show any bad attitude to the civilians, even though civilians of a foreign country, they're just people. Do you think that I made a phone call to the commander-in-chief, say, like, give a bucket of water to the elderly people or something like that? No, there's different situations, definitely, but most and foremost, it's understandable. Well, the people, strong people, but sometimes we have a BT towards someone. As for the other things, they know what are important. It's important for us not to be like those who brought war upon us with looting, with killings. I'm proud of our soldiers that we don't have anything even close to that, even remotely looking like that, because that's important to the attitude of the foreign countries. And you can see the attitude of the foreign countries because they didn't know, because we behave as human beings. And this is important that we preserve this. And the last but not the least, I think they are aware that we really need to return the people. So they should be giving more and more POWs because the exchange pool we had was smaller than the Russians. You remember the first year of the war, so we need to increase that pool, no matter how difficult it is. And sometimes after the tortures that Russians have conducted against our people, you know, sometimes you really want, as a human, to respond to the soldiers based on their attitude to our POWs. But we need the POWs, otherwise we won't return ours. Channel 24, please. Anastasia Naritsina. Mr. President, recently the U.S. congressmen came to Kiev and they said that Ukraine can ask the aircraft, the pilots who are on pension, the pilots of F-16, we may be asking them to kind of to operate our F-16s, but we would need to have permission. And then the enemy is posting a lot of videos of destroying our airfields, even though they're using the drones to target their shellings. Why is that happening? Maybe because some of the personnel that is supposed to defend our airfields is sent as infantry. As for the personnel, this is the first time I can hear about this. We can talk about this with the soldiers, but well, the soldiers in Telegram. Well, look, we are talking about Telegram too much today. Telegram channels. Well, there's a lot of channels that are used by the Russians, and they have been using that on a variety of topics, like war, mobilization, what's happening on the front line, that there's lack of resources, and they keep sharing this information. But we're already adults, and we have to kind of clear out the messages. Shooting down the drones, well, we do that, and it's hard to do, to think of technically how to do that, and we're lacking the tools, including the air defense. And you're absolutely right in that. But you also have to understand that you're not going to be using Patriot to take down Orlan drone, because it's too expensive. And when the next time Russians will be launching Kinjal against the hospital, will be hard to take that missile down. So they have a lot of recon drones, and our soldiers and the military defense industry, they keep searching for the tools how to reduce the impact. It's true that they are used for targeting the shellings, for targeting different types of weapons. This is a very significant challenge, so there is a deficit. As for anyone volunteer to operate our F-16, we kind of raised this topic with our partners. Congressmen are on the same side with us, but that's a decision for the United States to make, only them. We'll continue working on it. Yes. Yeah. Frankly speaking, yes. Because on the overall, there is a wish, as it was with Denmark, with Netherlands, with Norway, and Belgium. So these are the four countries that we agreed with on the supply of F-16. There's a different type of, a different number of aircrafts and different timing, and the permits are granted by the United States, because well, someone might be using the aircrafts, but still, in accordance to the contracts, laws, and agreements, the final permission is granted by the United States. Just the same as for this question. Then Bloomberg in the end, then Deem, and I guess that would be the end, because already we have a conversation for an hour and a half. Good afternoon. Volodymyr Zelenskyy from Bloomberg. Mr. President, the first question, well, you mentioned about the plan that you're planning to show to the President Biden. Can you please specify, are we talking about the plan of economic sanctions or a plan of peaceful settlement? And the second question, today we seen Commander-in-Chief Zelenskyy, and he said that one of the main objectives is to divert some of the Russia's attention from the Pokrovsk and Kurakhivsk directions. If they will conquer those cities, do you think that Kursk operation would be the one that failed its objective? Well, Zelenskyy has, was very concise about operation because he knows a lot about this operation. I think it's already a success, and I believe so. And all the colleagues agree with me on that. I mean, Western colleagues, and there's already a lot of decisions because we've gained some success in Kursk. There are moments when nobody is, mentioning about your country, and you shouldn't be, speeding up with these decisions. And when you have focus on other things, particularly if there is a political season in your country. So there's many other things that we've already talked about. So Kursk is part of the plan that I'm going to be presenting and discussing to President Biden. Well, at least one of the stages of this plan. The most important part of this plan is to force Russia to end this war. And hopefully in a fair way for Ukraine. Now, if that plan would be accepted, and secondly, as we've learned, well, one thing is to approve the plan, and the other thing is to implement the plan. Now, if these two elements will work out, then we think that the main purpose will work out as well. Thank you. Now, Dean, please. Greetings, Yulia Hranovska, TV channel Freedom. So the question is the following. On the law on prohibition of the Russian Orthodox Church, the Vatican has mentioned against this law. So what's your point on that? Because we're not talking about the churches, but the zones of impact or the influence. Let me start with the final sentence of your question. So it's all about the influence. So there is an influence from the West and from Europe to different religious institutions, and I believe there's a lot in the informational space. And Vatican is not an exclusion. You know that the statements of Francis were different, and it's important what is happening in the information field. It's important not to lose the connection with the Vatican as well as the Italy and whole informational space of Europe and the United States. As I've told you, we want to have a special institution in addition to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in addition to my voice and some others. We all need to work more. Sometimes we think that we've already told and we've already explained so much. We've already had so much meetings, and I had a meeting. I think the speaker, the prime minister, the prosecutor general had meetings with Vatican. We met with people of different levels, starting from the Pope and until all the others. All the other officials, and it's all very complicated. It's every time it's like a déjà vu, and it's not about Vatican. It's about one thing. Whenever you start doing pauses in the informational work, in the informational fight for the truthful informational space or environment. So whenever you start making pauses, Russia starts, filling those gaps with their own information, because they have institutions, they have big money, they have a lot of people, like everywhere, in business, in politicians, in religion, and many other things. So you can't do anything about it, except for many work. Like today we'll have one statement, tomorrow, if you'll work, there will be another statement. The work works, the church works abroad, and in this respect, well, it stopped working like that in Ukraine. So we need to keep on fighting, and this is the most important. Fellow colleagues, I thank you for your question. I can see there's a lot of questions, but we have to let the president go. So thank you very much for your question. Thank you for this meeting. Believe in Ukraine, and we will be victorious. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.